Hello everyone, this is Mary Gregg with MAS Coding. Welcome back to our series that we're doing on the official ICD-10 CM Coding Guideline. As you all know, we're taking a tour through the guideline. But before we get started, I want everyone to know that in April, it's going to actually be April the 24th through the 25th, we will be doing a virtual online CPC review. If you do not have your CPC credential and you have always wanted to get your credential, or maybe you took the test and you did not pass, there's nothing wrong with not passing on the first try. Guess what? This class is for you. It's going to be, remember, April the 24th through the 25th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. On that Saturday, we'll finish up whatever we didn't finish on Friday, but we're going to leave ample time to work a lot of scenarios. So you all will become very familiar with the layout of the test. And the other great thing is this: because I am a licensed PMCC instructor, we will be using the official AAPC review guide that they give us instructors. Only instructors can get that review guide, and we're going to be using their review guide. So I look forward to that. We're also going to be having a CCS review in May. That's going to be May 22nd through the 23rd. We will be doing the same type format. It's going to be online. It's going to be virtual. It will be from 8 to 4. We will cover all the things you need to know in order to be a very successful candidate for the CCS. And that is May 22nd through May 23rd. And I look forward to you all being in those classes. Now, let us continue on our journey through ICD-10 CM Coding Guidelines. The last time we talked, we was in Chapter 4, and we was talking about diabetes. We talked about the different types of diabetes. We talked about how important it was that you understand that just because someone uses insulin will not make them a type 1. You have to know the guidelines, so make sure you listen to that video. We also talked about insulin pump failure. There's two different ways that insulin pump failure can go. One of them could be where it's not enough insulin being pumped into the patient, or too much. And depending on the type of pump failure that the patient have, you're going to have to know which way to code that. So now let's talk about secondary diabetes. Because I don't have time to go into everything, you have to just listen to the video. In the secondary diabetes, you remember when we first started this, I talked about the fact that there's two types of secondary diabetes. There's secondary diabetes due to underlying condition, that's your E08. And there's secondary diabetes due to drug or chemicals that the patient may have been taken, exposed to, whatever the case may be. And then E13, other specified diabetes. These types of diabetes follow the same makeup. All the diabetes follow the same makeup. And remember, your code would tell you the type of diabetes, the complication that the patient may have, and the body system sometimes that's involved in that diabetes. And remember, I told you the last time, always go to that index. And what's the most important word in that index? Underneath diabetes is the word with. Because the word with means that you, the coder, will assume a relationship with the diabetes and the condition. If you go to your book and go to your index and go to diabetes, and you can do type 1, type 2, it doesn't matter, and you go to work with, and you look down and you see CKD, chronic kidney disease. Okay, I got CKD and I got diabetes. Guess what? That means you're going to have diabetes with CKD, even if the physician did not document it that way. It is the physician's responsibility to document that the two are not related. Because if that condition is listed under that word with, then they are related as far as you are concerned as a coder. It is the physician's responsibility to say they're not. So you're going to find that's true with the secondary diabetes. Okay? So secondary diabetes, remember, we talked a little bit about this. E08, E09 can never be a principal diagnosis. They can never be a primary diagnosis. E13 can, but not E08 or E09. If you're going to use an E08, you got to know the underlying condition that is causing that. And so if you have a physician that said the patient have a secondary diabetes, but they don't tell you an underlying cause, guess what? You can't use E08 because E08 cannot be primary or principal. You're going to have to take it to E13. Word of caution. Most physicians, for whatever reason, they'll say secondary, but they mean type 2. See? Because, see, secondary diabetes is rare. If you got someone that you constantly, if all your patients are secondary diabetes patient and you coding them that way, that might be a problem. Just saying, as the young people like to say, just saying. They also tell you that if your patient is on insulin long-term, not with type 1. Remember last week or the last video we talked about type 1? Type 1, we know people have to be on insulin. You don't need to code Z79.4 with a type 1. But your type 2, your secondaries, and other specified, the E13, if they are being insulin treated, insulin control, insulin dependent, all those types of terms, then you're going to use Z79.4. There may be times if the patient is treated with both an oral medication and an insulin, only code the insulin. Do not use your oral medication Z code. Now, you may do that in your facility. You say, look, I code all day and we code both. All I can say is, don't do it on the test. When you are taking these tests, be it a CPC test or be it a CCS test, it's a cookbook test and you better follow the recipe. If you're going to do it your way, because that's the way your facility do it, then more than likely you may not pass that test. Now, people don't like for me to say that because they think that's too strong. But I'm just telling you the way it is. That's all I'm doing. The other thing in dealing with secondary diabetes is when someone have had their pancreas removed, partial or total. And so this is very important. I want you all to kind of know this or highlight it in your book. If someone have post-pancreatic diabetes, meaning that they got it because they have had a surgical removal of their pancreas, look what it says to do. Assign code E891. You got to assign that code. And you're going to also assign a code from category E13. And you're going to assign a code for the acquired absence of the pancreas. So remember that. Generally, if they specifically document that diabetes is due to the fact that they have had their pancreas removed, they want an E891. They want you to also have the E13. And they want you to have a Z9041. Secondary diabetes due to drugs. Once again, if it's an adverse reaction, E09 can never be a principal diagnosis. If the medication was correctly administered, like steroids, we have a lot of patients that come in and they have diabetes due to steroids. Guess what? I'm going to go to my adverse drug and go to my drug table. And I'm going to go to the column that says adverse reaction for steroids. And I am going to assign that code. And it has to be primary. And E09 will be secondary. If that E09 have any type of specific body complication, maybe they have a secondary diabetes with neuropathy. That's going to be an E0940 or E0941 or E0942 or whatever the case may be. So you're going to acquire that. If you had a patient that did an overdose that damaged their endocrine system and caused them to have diabetes, guess what? Your overdose code going to be first. And then the E09. So always just kind of remember that. Like I said, I'm not going into this in very, very specific details. So make sure you go and that you read these rules. I'm just hitting the highlights for you. If I did these in detail, believe me, we would have a 2-day class. Okay, that was chapter 4. Now chapter 5 is going to be mental behavior and neurodevelopment disorder. One of the things I hate coding this pain management stuff. That's just me. So you got pain disorder related to psychological factor. You're going to assign code F4541 for pain that is exclusively related to psychological factor. You cannot assume that everybody got a psychological problem just because they got chronic pain. If the physician don't document it, you don't code it. If the patient come in with chronic pain and the doctor doesn't document, like I said, that it's psychological, then you don't either. You know what you have to be careful with? Because sometimes you might see that the patient got a bipolar disorder and they also have chronic pain. And you're going to think, well, that's psychological. No, it's not. He didn't make a relationship between that mental disorder and that chronic pain, and neither can you. Now, remember the whiff rule? If you go to pain and you go chronic, and then it's a whiff underneath there, and they got psychological, you can make the relationship. But if you don't have that, then, and the physician don't make the relationship, you can't either. So you're not going to use a F4541 on a person just because they have bipolar or major depression. No, you can't do that. You're going to have, the physician going to have to make the relationship for you. Tell you the truth, it's not a whole lot to coding mental disorders. They do talk about remission. There are going to be times when the physician may say someone had a bipolar disorder, but now they're in remission. But once again, they have to document that. You cannot make that assumption. Mild substance use disorder and early sustained remission are classified to the appropriate code. In other words, somebody may be in remission, but then they fall back into it. Maybe somebody was in remission from doing cocaine, but they had a relapse. They went back. They did it again. Guess what? You're going to code cocaine. You're going to code. I think alcohol abuse and cocaine. I think cocaine may be F10, 14 or something. Don't quote me on that. I don't have my code book with me. I did not bring up my online code book. But just code whatever the physician document. They do give us some things that we can do in this respect. You can code if a patient an abuser or the dependent or abuser or other. So they gave you some guidelines because sometimes the documentation is so crazy. One provider may say they're dependent. One provider may say they're abuser. So they said, look, if you have abuse and dependency document, assign only the code for the dependency. If you have abuse and dependency, all document. Once again, if uses, because you also have a code for a person that just use. They're not abusing it. They're not dependent on it. They're just using it. Once again, you got to have the physician documentation that they're a user because we don't know. So if somebody come in and they say cocaine user, then I'm probably going to go to use and see what it tells me to do. Now you do have some include notes and exclude notes under these codes. Make sure you follow them. Always remember, you can only code these conditions if they are documented by the physician. Okay? Factitious disorder, the Munchausen syndrome. We recently got this code, I think, in 2019. So when you got the Munchausen syndrome, the perpetrator, that means the person that's, and I don't have time to go into Munchausen syndrome. Please look at it. Munchausen syndrome by Proxy. Generally, most of the time they say it's a parent, where the parent is saying the child is sick, but the child really not sick. But they just adamant that that child is sick. So what happened is they gave us some codes for that because when they get a hold to that parent and try to straighten the parents out, they got a code that you can put on there to show that that parent have that. It will not go on the child chart. Oh boy, this is great, people. Guess what? We finished up 2 chapters today. We finished up chapter 3 and we finished up chapter 4. I have enjoyed being with you today. I hope you have enjoyed this session as well. Don't forget we're having classes. If you don't have your CPC and you need to get that CPC, because you can make more money, you can get advanced better on your job with it, then we're going to have our virtual online class on April the 24th and the 25th from 8 to about 4 in the afternoon. We will be going over the rules and guidelines for all the CPT. And on that Saturday, we're going to be coding scenarios. In May, we're going to, May 22nd and 23rd, we're having our CCS review. So if you want to get your CPC and your CCS, you can do it all in 2 months, okay? Once again, it's going to be virtual. It's going to be online. We're going to be doing scenarios. You're going to have opportunity to ask questions. And I just look forward to you all being in those classes. We'll be getting the registration page up real soon so that we can start taking registration. Alrighty, thank you for listening today. And as always, happy coding. And remember, coders get paid to think.